This is a video describing one of the most important things you'll ever learn about guitar playing. I learned guitar when I was 10. I've been playing for decades and teaching for a long time. And it took me quite a long time before I realised this very basic thing about guitar playing that most people seem to miss when they're describing how learning guitar. For example, when most people learn guitar, it's all about where you place your fingers on the neck and you strum this way or you pick this way and so on and so forth. But these aren't the most important thing to learn in the beginning. The most important thing to learn in the beginning is something called body rhythm. Now, to explain this, I'd just like to say at this point that this is not the type of lesson where I'm trying to get people to buy a book that's going to teach them more. I'm going to teach you everything you need to know in practically this lesson, and it's free. So there's no hidden cost, nothing. Just explaining that right at the beginning so you know where we're heading. Now, what is body rhythm? Now, we're going to attempt to explain exactly what body rhythm is. Half of being able to develop body rhythm is understanding what it actually is and why you need to develop it and why it's so important. Body rhythm can be compared to a surfer keeping his balance. Body rhythm can be compared to a tightrope walker learning to keep his balance before he learns to do any tricks. Same with a surfer. The better his balance is, the more fluid his movements are, the more natural. The worse his balance is, the more stiff, and because he's trying to keep his balance and at the same time trying to do a move. And he's struggling to sort of, get a synergy between the two of them. In the same way, a tightrope artist who does tricks on a tightrope, he struggles initially to keep his balance. So you can see that struggle going on because they don't quite know exactly where the balance is. As the balance becomes more solidified, their fluency in their art form becomes greater. So similarly, the guitar is exactly the same. It's exactly the same. If you don't have body rhythm, you don't really have any balance. So body rhythm is your balance. Now, what is rhythm? Rhythm is a repetitive dun, 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 dun motion. Now, everybody knows that if you go to a sort of rock concert or a electronic music concert, people go like this when they're listening to music, or they clap, 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 clap like that. They don't clap like this. Occasionally, people might do that and say something like flamenco or some other style, but that's more of an expression. We're not concerned about that. We're concerned about the repetitive physical body movement, and that's called body rhythm. Now, how do you develop this? And if people can go to a concert and do it, and you don't really need any instruction, why do you need to develop it? Could be a question that's asked, and the answer is very simple. Because you have to learn to do something else while you're keeping that. Just like a surfer, he learns to keep his balance, but the story doesn't end there. He goes on to do maneuvers and so on and so forth while keeping his balance. If you sidestep this in music, what happens is, and this is based on years of teaching experience, if you sidestep this, what happens is it will always be nagging at you that your rhythm is not that good, it's not that solid, and you'll get thrown easily. So if you're playing in a band situation, if you're playing with other people, you're jamming or whatever, or even playing along with an electronic track, your rhythm will be kind of not very centered. So you need to develop it. Okay, so body rhythm is very simple. It's an even rhythm that's felt in your gut. The best way to start to understand it when you're practicing guitar is pretend like you're riding a horse. Ha, ha, ha. One could answer, what about just tapping your foot? Or what about playing with a metronome? Not good enough. It's not good enough. I did that when I was learning guitar. I learned, like I said, when I was 10 years old. By the time I was 20, I was getting, quite good. But this was lacking. And I practiced with a metronome. I'd tap my foot. And it wasn't enough. You've got to have a weighty in your stomach, like riding that horse or jogging. Now, just a side point, I'd like to explain to you some things about body rhythm. And people in the dance movement understand this very clearly. Your body rhythm is equated to physical motion. Slow walking, ha, 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 ha. It's the slowest body rhythm goes. And the fastest it goes is about almost on the verge of run. Ha, 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 ha. Any faster than that becomes uncomfortable. Any slower than that becomes uncomfortable. So it operates between a certain ratio of very, slow walking, and it's based on physical movement. Based on physical movement. Now, we're going to go into the next step of this. How do you develop it and why is it important? I'm going to aim the camera more now towards the guitar so you can actually understand this. Okay? So that's the initial explanation of it, and we'll go on to the next bit right now. The next shot, we're showing our knees and how you do the body rhythm with your knees. Ha, 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 ha. You're strumming the guitar at the same time. The guitar's up above the camera's view. You're strumming the guitar at the same time. Ha, 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 ha. Now, when you do this ha business, eventually it'll become second nature and you won't be going ha, ha, ha anymore. But that may take a while. Don't rush yourself out of this situation and work diligently at it, because believe me, it will pay off in the long run. You will not believe how much it will pay off. So when we're doing the ha thing, don't just go from your chest. Ha, 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 ha. That's not body rhythm. Body rhythm is more of the lurch of the downward motion where you reach the lowest point, ha, ha, ha. Your body, ha, 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 like that. You see? And what that does is it teaches you to sit in your own body's groove. You've heard the word sit in the groove maybe. This is what they're talking about. The groove is where you sit. It's not what's expressed by playing the instrument. That comes next. If you're not sitting in the groove within yourself, there is let me tell you this, there's zero possibility that you will get a groove going anywhere else, because you haven't got it going in the initial place first, any more than a surfer will do a smooth move if he can't keep his balance properly. So you have to be very clear on that point. So many people teach guitar. I've seen it online. Hundreds of people teaching guitar, and they teach what I consider to be, dressing. It's not the fundamental thing of learning guitar. People say back to the basics. Well, this is the basics. Believe me, this is the basics. Okay, so practice that going ha, ha, ha. Now in the next section, I'm going to explain how you develop it in relation to guitar. All right, now when you're keeping your body rhythm here, as we previously explained, we're now going to try and strum a guitar. Understand that basic strumming is used for 90% of guitar playing. All the other little techniques are used for a much smaller percentage. So we'll be dealing with that. All right, so you're holding your hand and we're keeping our body rhythm. Now there are only two motions of your right hand when it comes to connecting with body rhythm. One is exactly the same as your body rhythm. Ha, 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 ha. We'll call that a downstroke 4 because there's 4 body rhythms to the bar. 1, 2, 3, 4. The other one is double the time. Double time. Ha, 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 like that. The double time. Now when you're doing half time, ha, 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 if you do the upstrokes, they're called eighths. And that type of rhythm is your relaxed, kind of, cruising rhythm. Ha, 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 ha. Now when you do that same strum, all in downs, you're doing the eighths in downs. And if you threw any ups in, they'd be sixteenths. They'd be like this. Okay, now that's getting a little bit advanced, but I'm just explaining the motion of the right hand so you understand clearly there's only two motions of the right hand. Downstroke 4, downstroke 8. Downstroke 4 includes the up 8s, because when you hit the ups, your hand's striking the strings 8 times to the bar. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Ha, 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 ha. So 8, easy enough to understand. When you're doing a downstroke 8, you're also doing the same. But if you hit the ups, you're doing 16 to the bar. They're called 16ths. So that's just a side point that you might want to take note of, and we're not going to get too heavy into that right now. So to learn our body rhythm, we're going to learn how to test yourself when you're doing body rhythm. You need to be able to test yourself to see if you can actually do it. Because remember, we're not just learning to go ha, ha, ha. We're learning like a surfer would learn. Oh, I'm going to practice that maneuver. Oh, I lost my balance. I'll try again. We're learning like that. Seems a little slow because if you lose your body rhythm, you've got to try again. But it starts slow, but in the end, your style is not constricted or it's not held back by a problem that you should have gotten rid of in the early days of your playing. All right. How do you test it? Well, first we'll do just a downstroke 4. So like that. Ha, 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 ha. Remember, our body's heaving. We're riding a horse. We're not just tapping our foot. Ha, 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 ha. Now, let's say you did a strum where you do this. Down, down, up. Down, down, up. And then you do a miss. Down, down, up, miss, up, down, up. That's a fairly common strum. Down, down, up, miss. Do a miss by just missing the strings and striking the guitar about here. Down, down, up, miss, up, down, up. Like that. So, down, down. Easy enough. Now, that's a fairly simple strum. Now, test yourself. If you can do this, ha, 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 ha. By testing yourself, you will be understanding that I'm sitting quite well in body rhythm because I'm strumming that strum and I'm doing my body rhythm and I'm sitting in my body rhythm. However, if you do this, ha, 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 it means that you can't separate the two and you have to be able to. And that's your practice. That's what you're trying to learn how to do. Separate the two. If you're doing this, ha, 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 ha. In other words, doing the strum, but your body rhythm's going to the strum. Ha, 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 ha. That type of thing where you're lurching your body rhythm, where you're caught in the strum. That's something like the surfer going into the turn, and his whole balance goes skew-whiff when he goes into the turn. You've got to set into the body rhythm. Likewise, if you ha, 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 instead of keeping the strum, you do ha, ha, you go back to that, ha. You strum for a little while, you go, okay, I'll get my body rhythm happening. And you do this, ha, ha, ha. Well, that's like a surfer not doing the move. He's too busy keeping this balance. So you don't want to lurch to one or the other. You've got to be able to do both. As you get better, ha, 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 ha. You wouldn't be going ha, 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 like that. See? You have to sit in the body rhythm. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Doesn't matter what you'll do, you are conditioned. You train yourself how to sit in body rhythm. Now, if you can understand that if you don't develop body rhythm, your playing's going to be flimsy. It doesn't matter how much technical stuff you learn. It's going to sound flimsy. And that's what I learned. It's going to sound flimsy. You can learn legato, you can learn finger picking, you can learn this, you can learn that. It's great. It's great. But if you don't put this at the base of it, it's something like a surfer trying to learn a whole bunch of tricks on the sand. Not much use. Because when he gets out in the water, he's then immediately reminded you've got to keep your balance. Oh, it's not like on the sand. So similarly, when a person learns like this, there are rare people that don't have to do this. It's just natural to them. Just like that, you know, but they are rare. I've taught a lot of people and I've found maybe one or two. Quite often in the old days, people would say, oh, black people have got better rhythm. And you know, there's a lot of truth in that. And that's because they've had a more of a tribal type background. You know, it's tribal. And they're used to sort of, you know, doing dances and communities. So it's kind of like they're born into it a little bit. See? In the West, we've been sort of, you know, and certain parts of the East too, we've been brought up to sort of, you know, sort of thing. You know, harpsichord type music back through history. We've been very da, 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 like that. So that type of rhythm doesn't come that naturally to us. So we have to train it. Don't be discouraged. It's not that hard to train. You might go, well, I don't know what to do. Okay, you show me a strum. Down, down, up, miss, up, down, up. Well, here's a tip. We're only concentrating on downstroke 4s later, at this point. But if you wanted to do downstroke 8s, it's not that hard. You just apply the same principle. But we'll deal with downstroke 4. There are 4 downs and there are 4 ups. You don't need to learn a particular strum. You can write it on a blackboard or a piece of paper. Down like a D, and up like a U, down like a D, up like a U. And when you've written your 4 downs and your 4 ups, you're looking at a down and up 8th. Right? Downstroke 4 means up 8th. So you're looking at your down and up 8th, and you're going, okay, how can I make a strum out of this? Well, the process of strumming is very simple. There are hits and there are misses. For example, down, down, up had 1 miss in it. If it didn't have that, it would simply be that. Down, down, up, miss, up, down, up. Okay? Then there's loud and soft. I'm making the 2 ups louder than the rest. Down, down, up, miss, up, down, up, 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 down. Ha, 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 ha. Right, so in that way, you can develop your strumming. This is a better method of learning how to strum than getting a book of strums. Because all strums are is downs and ups and misses, and louder and softer strokes. And one other thing, low strings and high strings. So if I go like this, but then I divide it into low and high strings like this. You can hear a difference straight away. If I add a louder stroke, and I mix up the lows and highs, that strum starts to sound interesting. It's got a pattern to it, some kind of a pattern. So we hear a pattern there, you see? So rhythm always has a pattern, but the lockdown of rhythm, your body rhythm does not have a pattern. You need to know that. Ha, 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 ha. If you can't do ha with every single thing that you do, your body rhythm needs working on. It's very simple. If your body rhythm goes to the strum, you need to work on it. If your strum goes to the body rhythm, in other words, they get tangled, one falls one way or one falls the other, you need to work on it. It's really easy. So you can become your own teacher to a certain degree. You don't need to pay hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars to try and find, you know, the missing chord or something. So I hope this has explained a little bit of what this is, and hopefully people get to grasp the idea that this is important, and I'm not making this up as something that you would you don't have to learn or something. It is something that is very important. It's something that I realised was important in my life and playing music, and I'm simply trying to pass it on. Now, when you're learning a guitar, there are 2 aspects of learning guitar. One is what I call a roadmap. Roadmap is chords, scales, modal system stuff, diminished scales, or the whole modal system, Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, blah, 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 blah. That's the roadmap. That's like a driver sitting down and studying the roadmap. Oh, I've got to throw a left here, I've got to throw a right there, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. That's that part of it. But the real thing about learning guitar initially, the driving lesson, learning to drive your car, is right hand and body rhythm influence, because through that you learn your motor. Your motor's locked down in your stomach and your right hand expresses that motor. It's a motor of expression. And when you change gears, you can go from a downstroke eighth to a down up eighth. Okay, so we're learning the motor of guitar. If you get too caught up on learning the roadmap, and most people do in the beginning, that's like a taxi driver learning the roadmap but neglecting to learn how to drive. You learn to drive first, then you learn the roadmap. You can learn the roadmap later on, or you can learn it while you're learning to drive. That's okay. But you have to put the emphasis of importance on actually learning to drive. And that emphasis should mainly be on body rhythm. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much.